Auckland is too often seen as a place of problems than a place of opportunity. And I think arising from a presentation I gave to this forum 2 years ago, Auckland Unlimited approached me to whether we would do a provocation, a think piece, think ahead about what Auckland could be 2 generations from here. And so what we set about to do at the request of Auckland Unlimited was to explore across a broad range of domains, 9 different domains, to see what Auckland could be. On purpose, yes, we looked at the many reports that have been written about Auckland. We wanted to get ahead of that and look ambitiously to a human-focused, environmentally sensitive, economically productive city, one in which the people of Auckland were at the centre, and too often they're at the periphery of discussion. And so we took a very formal process of talking to a large number of people, asking them about their vision for Auckland, the barriers to reaching those visions, and what were the underutilised opportunities and assets that Auckland had. And then that led to the provocation to start the conversation. We can't finish it, we've got to start a conversation. But it also led to the recognition that underneath all of this, there's a number of barriers to progress. They're the disconnect between Auckland and Wellington in policy making, a lack of alignment, the lack of a single planning centre for Auckland, like many cities around the world now have, a clear singular unit for planning. A lack of voices of young people into the planning of where we go over 2 to 3 generations from now. A lack of a really effective linkage between the MPs of Auckland and the people of Auckland, and the lack of taking advantage of the new techniques of how citizens can feel engaged in their future. And that's why we think that Auckland should be a test bed for participatory and deliberative democracy techniques in New Zealand. It should be a test bed for thinking about how a large city can adapt to new technologies, live with new technologies in an environmentally and human-centred way. This is a city of remarkable opportunity, bogged down by people too much thinking about the barriers rather than about the opportunities. Its biggest asset is we're soon going to be 2 million people. It's already more productive than any other part of New Zealand proportionate to its population. It can be more productive than that. It could represent 50% of the GDP of New Zealand in the next decade or so. But it needs to realise that cities themselves are the unit of both long-term thinking and of innovation, not countries, cities. And that's what Auckland has to have a mindset about. At the same time, recognise the things it must address. Its transport issues, its housing issues, it's the large number of people who live in relative disadvantage. But all of that can be solved in a very positive mindset and thinking ahead about the city. We would not claim that everything in our report is what we should be done. What we were trying to do is point out what could be done, and it needs a collective conversation between the people of Auckland, the business community of Auckland, the policy makers in Auckland, and importantly, the policy makers in Wellington as well. But we must get beyond short-term political cycles and start to think about how we genuinely exploit the assets of Auckland for the next 2 generations or more. And my hope in today's meeting is that that this provocation is taken as a conversation starter than a conversation closer. This would be a waste of time if we don't now have an ongoing conversation, not just today, but over the coming 2 or 3 years, so we really embed Auckland, TＡMAKI Makaurau, as a city that can be a global city, a city of economic, environmental, and particularly human and cultural relevance at a global scale.